Hello, welcome back to the second channel. This is the channel where nothing's ready when I start shooting, so I need to take you off this, which is going to be interesting. And also it's the channel where I take forever to get to the point. I'm massively out of focus now. I don't care if you don't like it, to be honest. You can leave. No one cares either that you're going or that you'll never watch this channel ever again. Just go. Goodbye. But those of you who stick around, I genuinely think you are the best thing since sliced bread, as we say in the UK. Is that saying said anywhere else? I don't know. Anyway, but you are genuinely, because I do feel like these videos are sometimes all over the place. And this one will definitely be all over the place for several reasons. The main reason is because it is 7:30 in the evening, and this is the last day before I go on holiday for a week to Greece with the family, and I can't wait. It's massively overdue. Badly need it. But because of that, and what always happens seemingly, when I'm sure you might be the same, if you when you've been working flat out and then you stop for a bit because your holiday's coming up, your body's like, whoa, hang on a minute, you're going to feel ill now. That's how this works. I'm not used to this. You're clearly going away, so you're going to get a raging headache and just feel absolutely worn out. So that's how I feel at the moment, because I did stop earlier and then it was like, oh, okay. So that's one of the reasons this might go anywhere. And the other reason is because of the subject matter. So let me just turn you around. Let's change the mic so you can hopefully hear me better. In here, he says, desperately trying to open the cupboard. There we go. We have all sorts of stuff, actually, but we have a pair of Dyson headphones. Remember them? We have those. We have some other headphones. We have a pair of AirPods Max, the original version. But the thing that I want to talk about is, where is it? It's this one here. It is a Windows computer. Shock horror. Wow, that's massively overexposed now. Let's bring that down. Okay, so, and the people who don't like this channel and who don't like this kind of content will be raging now in the comments, won't they? Brilliant. I'm walking like this around there because there's two things on that desk over there that you don't need to see because they are embargoed. Right, let's adjust the mic. Pop you on there. Breaking all of the fourth walls at the moment. There we go. Right. Okay. Oh, water. I definitely need water. Keep hydrated on all that stuff. Okay. So, Windows 10, more specifically, he says, trying to get his words out, and Mac OS. There we go. This is terrible. What's going on? That's better. Is it any better? Who cares? Right. I made a video about the switch to, well, I made a video about the impending doom that is Windows 10 support. Basically, if you weren't aware, Windows 10 support ends in October, the 14th of October this year, 2025, just in case you're watching this in the future, which you're probably not. And that is going to cause a bit of an issue for people who aren't aware of that fact. If you're a small business or you're just a home user and you've got a Windows 10 machine, it doesn't mean that it's going to stop working at all on the 15th of October. You won't turn it on the 15th of October and just get a blue screen. You might get a blue screen. It is Windows after all. But no, joking apart, it won't stop working straight away. In fact, it may never stop working, but you won't get support from Microsoft after that point unless you pay for it. And unless you go up to Windows 11, so if you get the free upgrade to Windows 11, obviously that solves the problem completely. But then it's not as simple as that, because Windows 11 has a specific set of requirements and your computer may not meet them. But yeah, there are some ways around it apparently, which I found out since in the comments section of that video. But basically, it's ending. Support for Windows 10 is ending on the 14th of October this year. So I thought, let's make a video about it, but let's make a video specifically about switching to the Mac. So if you do have a Windows 10 machine that has this impending end of support, why not think about the Mac? And that video on the main channel, obviously, has gone fairly mad in terms of views, but more particularly in terms of comments. And those of you who understand how this stuff works, yes, the intention was to, poke the bear a little bit when it came to Windows users, because they start getting very angry and setting their trousers on fire, and lo and behold, they let rip in the comments, and that really helps YouTube videos. Views helps, obviously, but in terms of getting those views, YouTube wants very busy comment sections, and that's one way to get a very busy comment section. Talk about Windows versus Mac. It's guaranteed to happen. And yes, you purposely, completely intentionally leave out a few important details because that'll be picked up, and then again, all hell breaks loose in the comments. However, the important details I left out were things like the fact that the Windows 11 upgrade is free. I know that if you look into this, you'll find that out, but that isn't what that video was about. That video was about going from this to this. And I thought today, why not very briefly, I promise, talk about my own journey from Windows to Microsoft. Brilliant. My own journey from Windows to Mac OS, because it might be interesting. And also, I thought you could then tell me your journey, either from this to this or vice versa. You may have gone the other way. You may have started at the Mac and then gone to Windows, although I don't know why you'd be watching this particular channel if you were, but if you did that, but maybe that's what you did. But my story, it goes back years and years, because I've always alluded to this, I think, on the main channel, that I used to be a big Windows user. Huge fan of... Was I a fan of Windows? Maybe not, but I was a user of Windows. It was all I knew, basically. So I'm a child of the 80s/90s. I was born in 1980. So when I really started using computers at the age of, what would it have been, 12, 13 maybe. I mean, before that I was into, obviously, consoles and all that sort of stuff. But I'm talking about properly using computers for schoolwork and all that sort of stuff. That was like 1992, 93. And yes, Macs obviously existed then, but they weren't even in my head. I knew they existed, but they weren't something that I thought I could ever or would ever need to use. Or I don't suppose back then you think about affording it, do you, in terms of the monetary value? But I just had this impression that it was another level entirely that I wouldn't reach for whatever reason. So the Windows was just what you used back then. It's what you used at school, mainly, and it's what you used at home. And I was one of those kids who built PCs. I built them for myself. I built them for friends and family, and 90% of the time they didn't work. They were utterly useless. But particularly, the ones that I built for my friends and family did work, because even back then I had just enough intelligence to work out that my mate or my mum or whoever it was I was building the PC for wouldn't want to have a fairly experimental setup with a graphics card and all that sort of stuff. They wanted a bog standard CPU, a certain amount of memory, a hard drive, bang, power supply, whatever, finished. And you couldn't really get that wrong. It's when you start, and if you used to do this, again, get involved in the comments, but if you used to build your own PCs, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's when you start getting into the realm of graphics cards and all that stuff. I have no idea if it's still the case now. I'm sure it's very similar, but back then, because a lot of that technology was so nascent, and graphics cards were only really coming of age. Well, they only really came of age in the late 90s, really. So I was experimenting with some really kind of new stuff, and none of it really worked very well together unless you really knew what you were doing. And I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I just read magazines, and me and one of my mates kind of talked about it, and we just figured out how we thought you should build PCs. So I did that for quite a while, and it was roughly that sort of time that I was into music. I got into music production as well. My dad's a musician. Music's been a big part of our family, and because of that, I had access to a lot of music stuff. And again, mid-teens is when I started making my own music, and I did that with a PC that I built and somehow got working fairly consistently and reliably. And back then, Logic, which was at that point owned by eMagic, which no longer exists, I don't think. I'm sure it doesn't. It definitely doesn't, because then Apple acquired eMagic and bought Logic and turned Logic into what it is now. But back then it was just on Windows, and like I said, I built this rig and it worked. I played games on it and all the rest of it. Then I started doing a media studies A-level, and that gave me access to a G3 Mac, a tower, the translucent G3 tower, Mac tower, whatever. And we used it for video editing for the coursework that we were doing in that A-level. And I immediately fell in love. But again, it was this thing that I knew I couldn't afford. The school had bought 2 of them, and they made a big deal about the fact that they were both expensive and you had to be kept. They were kept in like a locked room. You had to have a key from the teacher to get into that locked room, obviously. And it was all very much, these are special. You know, you've got very special access to this stuff. And because of that, it continued to build this aura around the Mac that was like untouchable. You know, it's this thing that you could just only aspire to, really. So that was my first experience with the Mac, which again would have been 95, 96, something like that. And then I had to wait about 10 years to get my own Mac, to get my own proper Mac in my hands and start using it. And that was a G5. It was a G5 tower again. Beautiful computer. Even to this day, that's such a good looking bit of kit. Yeah, that would have been 2005-ish, I think. And I remember getting it. I bought it from a guy who used to work for, at that time worked for, it was a rock radio. It was, it might have been Planet Rock. I can't remember. Anyway, I went to pick it up from Birmingham. I remember that. I went to their studio, picked it up from this guy, got it home. And the first thing I did was try out GarageBand, because I'd heard about GarageBand, and thought I'd give it a go. And it was just this bog standard GarageBand that you got with Mac OS 10 as it was then. And I was just blown away by how unbelievably stable it was, how fast it was, how smooth it was. No lag, no crashing, nothing. And secondly, what you could do with this out-of-the-box music production software that everyone who bought a Mac back then and to this day gets. Everyone gets GarageBand, and it seemed like a better experience than Logic on the PC that I had before. And I just remember thinking, this is incredible. This is like a new world. And it kind of went from there, really. And I've never looked back since. 2005 to 2025. I've been a Mac user ever since. It's just been the thing that I have swiftly migrated to. And yeah, I guess the kind of the thread that has run through all of this is music production. I do it less these days because life, kids, job, mortgage, all the rest of it, although I'm trying to get back into it. But it's been that thread that kind of got me from the PC into the Mac, and then lo and behold, 2020, I started a YouTube channel, and here I am. So that was my journey from this, not specifically this, obviously, but from Windows to Mac. And the one thing that has always struck me with this is that I remember, I absolutely have a very, very clear memory of thinking back, again, this would have been mid-2000s, just thinking, why didn't I do this 10 years ago? Why didn't I get a Mac? Why didn't I just forget Windows and go for the Mac years ago? Why didn't I do it? And not everyone, but a lot of people that I meet and talk to, and people that I see in the comments on these videos say the same thing. The people who have gone from Windows to Mac always say, I think it's almost 100% thing. It must be. Why didn't I do this sooner? This is such a better experience. And objectively, I think it is. I know people will be flooding the comments now, hopefully, with pro Windows comments, and I hope they do. I have a soft spot for Windows. I always have done. There's still elements of Mac OS that throw me, even to this day, 20 years on. Things like, for instance, if you highlight a file in the Finder app and press Enter on the Mac, it goes to the rename function, which is like, what? Hang on. On Windows, you press Enter and it opens. Obviously, on the Mac, you press Space and it previews it, all that sort of stuff. But so things like that, and also certain Windows management type things, I still feel a bit not foreign, but they still feel a little bit clunky on the Mac occasionally compared to Windows, because I was so used to Windows. The fact that the menu bar isn't always the menu bar of the app that you have open. If you leave it open and you bring up something else in the back, you probably know what I mean if you've been from Windows to Mac, I think. I hope this is making sense, guys. I don't feel like this video is making any sense at all, because I'm not making sense in my head, because I don't feel particularly fantastic. But hopefully it is. I think also it's a bit of nostalgia. This is a bit of a little trip down memory lane for me, which I've been doing a lot over the last 2 weeks while I've been, while we've been making these videos about Windows to Mac. It's really made me think about that past, and like I say, that thread of music production that took me from here to here. It's a nice bit of nostalgia, and I'd love you to get involved in the comments, as I say, and just tell me your own stories about transferring from one platform to the other, because these are, all of that, platform wars thing aside, these are just operating systems. They mean a lot to us because we use them all the time, and you do get attached to them because you rely so much on them for work and leisure and doing stuff that you love doing. So I'm the same as anyone when it comes to getting attached to an operating system, but not to the point where I'll fight about it with someone in the comments section, because it's just daft. But I do think it's good to talk about it and just talk about those memories of switching platforms and why you like certain platforms and all that sort of stuff. So please do get involved. I've said this several times. I think I say it on every video on the Tech Diary, that this channel brings out the best comments of the two channels that we run for tech. This one is the one where you guys really add to the conversation. Yes, we get the occasional troll, which is fine, but 99.999% of you are just wonderful, and you really go for it. I can't believe the size of some of the comments, the passion, the fact you give up your time to do that is incredible. So keep doing it, please. It makes this job worth it. It makes running this channel worth it. And hopefully it means these videos get seen by more people. Although, do I want more people to see this video? Possibly not. Who knows? What else can I say? Not much more, really. Apart from the fact that I don't hate Windows. I always give it a bit of gentle ribbing, a bit of, as the kids say, do the kids say this? Probably not, but friendly bants. It's all about the banter. I don't hate Windows. I've got a real soft spot for it. It was a big part of my childhood, my teens, and my early 20s, and it got me through a lot of stuff at work as well, which I shouldn't forget. Really, I don't forget either. It means a lot to me because of that. But it's not the Mac. The Mac is where things are for me now these days. Right, my voice is slowly departing. I keep stumbling over all of these words that I'm trying to get out of my mouth. There you go, another example of that. And if you've reached this particular deep end, thank you. I'll just shut up now because that's enough. Thanks, guys. If you haven't hit subscribe yet and you have got this far, then that's just the last thing I'll ask you to do. I would really appreciate that. And yeah, give the video a like if you've enjoyed it. Tell your mates, get involved in the comments, and I will see you, I promise, refreshed in a week's time. I will definitely be refreshed. Right, to the beach.